Yeah, no, none of our conversations ever stay light, do they? They always move into like a different... It's never a casual, how's your day been?
That's literally how that started. You know that,
That's
right?
how this started. That's so true.
That's literally how that started.
Woo. Woo. Well, we are here, we are present, and we are grateful for the people we are today.
100%.
And part of how we got here today is with harnessing the tool of your inner voice. So let's talk about our actual topic for the day. Which is inner voices.
No, 100%. Yeah, welcome to another episode. We wanted to touch on inner voices because I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it plays a major part in your decision making.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, we know the answer.
Yeah, sorry, my hair's just...
I'll do your thing.
Trying to gather myself. But yeah, go.
A lot of the time, you know the answer if you just listen to yourself. But we choose for some reason. Sometimes we choose not to listen to our inner voices. Other times we do. But I think it's a gradual process. Like, for me, you know, like they say intuition and stuff like that. But there was also the thing of experiencing stuff. So they do say once you know better, you do better. But you know, like there's that, sometimes you would tell yourself, nah, it's not the time to do that. But there was always that allure of experience. Let me just try it anyway. How can I put this question? What am I trying to ask you? How easy is it for you now to listen to yourself? It's the question I'm asking first of all.
If I look at it retrospectively, like comparatively, it's a lot easier for me to listen to my inner voice now. But if I think about it day to day, there are days when your inner voice is easier to listen to you. And I believe that you can control that. And that's the thing that changes things, you know?
What do you think, what was it, like what makes it difficult? Is it when you're doing something new or if...
I think, well, let's get specific. Like, are you talking about new experiences and...
Yeah. I mean, like, say something surface level, like something that you've done before, like gone to the gym, yeah?
I'm a runner now. I run. Just haven't started yet. But
anyway, let's not even go down that road.
Yeah, no more segues.
Let's not even go down that road. Something that you've done before, yeah? But you're telling yourself, this is very like, you're telling yourself, oh, I can't bother to do it today, right? Your voice inside you is like, not today. As opposed to something that you've never done before and you're intrigued by it, but your body's, something's telling you not to do it. Which one's harder to listen to? Which one's harder to ignore? In your current state.
So one inner voice is...
they're both telling you the same thing, but it's two different experiences. So both are telling you not today. But one is the gym, something that you've done before, and the other is, I don't know, something that you've never done before.
Well, I don't think both of those things are your inner voice, you know? So with the first example, the gym, you know, something you've done before, something that's good for you, whatever, that's not your inner voice. That's your emotional voice. That's the voice saying, I'm not bothered to go. I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah.
I'm so happy you said that. But yeah, go on.
Thank you. Because your inner voice is your voice of inner knowing, inner wisdom, inner truth. It's not true that, okay, it might be true that you don't feel like the gym today, but it's not true that that's something that you shouldn't do, you know? If in that situation, and I've been in that situation where it happened to me today, I was like, oh, I don't want to finish my room. It's going to take, like, to clean it. It's going to take hours, blah, 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 blah. That's not my inner voice. That's my lazy voice. But my inner voice, the voice of wisdom, says, just do it. It's not going to take that long. Once you start, it will be over before you think, blah, blah, blah.
So, like I said, I'm so happy you said that because I wanted to differentiate between the type of voices that you hear.
And that is so important. So important. And I'll come on to that in a second. But with the second example, like when it's something in your body, something in your spirit saying, don't do this, you have to listen to that, you know? You just have to listen to it.
Why'd you say that?
Because that's your inner wisdom.
That's your actual inner
wisdom. That's your inner voice. That's your inner wisdom, your inner truth, your inner knowing. It's a protective voice. It's a loving voice. It's a sat nav in your body.
Do you always listen to it?
No, that's why I'm saying you've got to listen. It has not ended well for me at the times
What's the worst experience you've had where you've not listened to that? Without, you don't have to go into specific details, but
let me just say it's been bad. You have to listen to your inner voice. Yeah. Even something as simple as, you know, say someone's goading you, you're trying not to argue with someone. Your inner voice will tell you to do something that's uncomfortable for your current egocentric voice at the time. The egocentric voice wants to tell them exactly how you feel, blah, 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 what's going on, this. Inner wisdom will say, be patient, you know, be patient, speak to them later.
Do you find it easy to listen to that voice though?
No.
I know you said you don't always listen to it, but do you find it easy to, like, you know, when it's like clear and concise and do you find it easy when it's blatantly obvious that you should be listening? Take away the emotions, everything. Like, is it easy?
I think listening is a practice, and the more you practice listening to your inner voice, the more you trust your inner voice, the more you can recognize your inner voice, and then it is easy to listen to your inner voice.
What do you think can stop you from listening to it?
It's such a big question, and I have so many answers. So I'm just trying to think which one I want to talk about first. So there are so many things that can stop you from listening to your inner voice. And that, I'm trying to think of it, because I'm trying to talk about it in a way to not answer the opposite of that question, which is how to listen to your inner voice. But I think with your inner voice, one thing that stops you being able to hear it is not knowing what your inner voice is. And that happens because there's too many other voices in your head, you know, whether that's from speaking to every single person and getting their opinion and leaving no room for your inner knowing and feeling, whether it's, I mean, we live in the digital age, you know, and spiritual warfare has existed long before us and will exist long after us. There are voices everywhere. You can't walk down the street without seeing 5 different advertisements on the bus, on, you know, shops, on a billboard, on the billboards by the bus stop. Each message is telling you something different, you know. Why is it that you'll see these music videos and you'll see everyone dancing and having a good time and drinking and smoking? What does that actually tell you in terms of your, you know, your inner voice? It tells you that in order to achieve not looking cool and having fun, but in order to achieve a belonging, a community of people, you need to do these certain things to get there. There are messages all around us. There are voices always trying to get into your head. So you need to make sure that, speak to other people, get some advice, whatever, but you need to sit by yourself and have a moment of stillness. And stillness just means silence, you know, however that silence looks for you, whether silence means staring at a river or going for a walk or whatever, all these things that every other voice will tell you you don't have time for and it's too much effort to do. That's the same other voices that are trying to make you go down a path that isn't for you. You need to do that for yourself because you need to trust that your inner voice will tell you the right thing. And that actually brings me to another point. I think it's a lack of trust, you know, not trusting yourself, not trusting your inner voice.
Yeah.
Especially if your inner voice is telling you to do something different from everything else that you've heard.
Don't you think the most powerful, what do you think the most powerful voice is in your head? Because to me, your inner voice, should be the most powerful. But I think the one that takes over more often than not is the emotional side. And when you listen to your emotions a bit too much, it can sometimes suppress. Well, they say it's logic versus raw. I hate when that happens, though. They say it's like
logic versus emotion.
Yeah, I just said the word. That's why it's so crazy.
That's why I was so shocked. I was like, is it another word? But yes,
anyway,
logic versus
emotions, right? 9 times out of 10 in situations. And you know, like in the heat of the moment, especially, if you're able to separate the two, you can always, not even 9 times out of 10, always get the right answer and get the right thing to do in that moment. And it's funny because, I had this thing. I'm in control of my emotions, I would say, for the most part. But there was this incident, one time, and I was walking with one of my friends, and he brings it up. I don't even know why I done this, but there was a guy antagonizing us, we're just walking down the street, and this is like us in our heyday, so things could happen, right?
Yeah.
So we're walking down the street, this guy's antagonizing us, and then like in the heat of the moment,
antagonizing how though?
I can't remember what he was saying. He was just being stupid. Like, he was just being stupid. But you know when somebody could be a hothead, but for some reason I stopped and I just looked at this guy and I said, like, what are you doing? Kind of thing, yeah. And that was me separating my emotions from my wisdom, because my wisdom was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, reacting to this situation doesn't make sense. You do something now over nothing. It's basically over nothing.
Yeah.
This could go very left over nothing, right? But that stillness where I just actually froze, in terms of I froze my feelings and had that moment of stillness and looked at this person and said, like, what are you doing? Yeah, that's a testament to what you're saying in terms of like, sometimes you have to take away those other voices that's telling you to do X, Y, and Z. Yep. And just have that moment to understand what is really being said to you right now. It happens too often when I think about it, Like, I was in a shop recently and there was a guy and he kept coming, he was like in the lift, but he was moving strange. And I do that often. I ask people like, what is wrong with you? I don't know why I do that, but I've recognized that me asking
Wait, you
someone,
actually asked someone, what are you doing?
Yeah. I was like, no, first I was like, you good? You good? Just making sure everything's cool with you.
But wait, what was he doing?
He was just like, he was in the corner and he was muttering something, but in another language, yeah?
That's...
And I'm like, cool.
That's a quick way for me to jump out at the next
I'm just
floor.
like, whatever, innit? Like, you just keep your corner, I keep my corner. But I was just like, you good? And he's saying something. But you know when someone says something in another language and they're just like, bro, I just hope you don't say something stupid right now. Because I just hope you don't say something stupid right now, yeah? And then like, we've got out of the lift and he's still coming closer to me saying whatever. So me just being me anyway, I'm sussing the situation, just looking to see what's going on here. Then I just asked him, I'm like what is going on? Like, what's wrong, kind of thing. And I've realized that is your go-to. Yeah, that's my way to find that little bit of stillness, because
create some space. So then, you know what I love about what you do when you do that is because you've allowed room for responsiveness, not a reaction. You're asking the person, what am I responding to here? Like, what's actually the situation? And I feel like when you bring things to light from the dark, that's what just eliminates them. It's like when someone tries to make a joke to belittle you or bring you down, when you say them, repeat that.
Yeah.
They don't want to repeat it because it just carries a different energy. It's like something is being exposed.
I think that's what it is. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like to know exactly what I'm reacting to rather than just reacting.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from that inner voice in me knowing that just blind reacting to something is not sensible.
Yeah.
And my wisdom in me knows that if you're going to react, to make it worthwhile a reaction. Like, yes, it's tricky. Because obviously in the heat of the moment, 9 times out of 10, you don't get that opportunity. You don't. And
But
seen
this
the
is
flip
why,
side.
and I say it in every episode, and I'll keep saying it until I do it all the time, at least. But you have to listen to your thoughts. You know, you have to see what voices are there, because it will do something to you. You know, your thoughts aren't just something separate from the rest of your body. Like when you're standing in a group of people and you're talking about something that you're passionate about, and then someone puts it down, if your first thought in your head was, oh man, that's embarrassing, I'm lame, what does your body do? Your shoulders immediately hunch over, you start to protect yourself, you'll step back a little bit, you'll ostracize yourself from the crowd. You know, when your immediate thought is, who are you talking to, or what do you mean, blah blah blah, you push back, you step forward, your chest puffs out. Like your body responds to your thoughts, and your emotions create those actions that correspond to that afterwards. So you need to listen to your thoughts, you need to listen to what's actually happening, because it will just be a tirade of things and then you're just responding to it.
But that doesn't just come from nowhere. So how do you actually do that?
So I'll give you an example. Like, it is hard to do, you know. There will be so many things from what you've seen, you know, in the media, which is everywhere. Like, it is insidious. And I think the first part of hearing your inner voice is stepping back from that. Stop comparing yourself to what movie characters or TV show characters would do. They're not real, they're not here. You have to get back into the present moment of what real life is. And I'm not saying this to put anyone down, it's something I've done myself. So for instance, when you're about to react to something, you'll think about, oh, I don't want to look weak, or I don't want to look like this person can take advantage over me, or I don't want to look blah, 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 or I don't want this person to think I'm a bad person, so I'm going to do this even though it's not what I actually want to do, you know? Like an example I'll mention is a recent example where I had, you know, a bit of an argument with someone, and I said some things that I wasn't too happy about afterwards, although they felt good in the moment. But my inner voice said to just go on airplane mode, and I didn't do it. So exhibit A. And then afterwards, I felt really, really bad about it. Like really bad. Like, you know, when you just feel so ashamed, like your body feels heavy and you just want to lie down. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm so like, that's so harsh. When I actually had to like, and it's hard to pull yourself out of that. But one thing that anchors me is just knowing that the universe loves you and you're not a bad person. You're just not. And if anything in you is making you feel bad, it's just not true, because the universe really does, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it really does love you. So that's why you feel so bad, because this isn't the truth. You know, there's a difference between when someone tells you a home truth about yourself and it actually makes you feel lighter, because you're like, yeah, I didn't see things that way. That's what the truth does. So if you're feeling this heavy and bad, that's not true, you know? And I was just like wrapped up in my feelings. I was like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, blah, 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 this. Should I just message them now? This, that, and the other. When you take a step back, and I just stopped for a minute and I was like, okay, what's actually happening here? Then my inner voice came through and it was like, okay, you're just feeling shame. Like, that's what this is. That's what the emotion is. Once I recognized that, then I knew exactly what I needed in that moment. And that was to go to sleep. I was like, there's nothing I can do about this right now. This is too much for me. I just need to sleep and I'll deal with it with a clearer head in the morning, because this on my head has been too much for me right now. And that also is your inner voice. That's something I actually wanted to mention about the inner voice too. I think sometimes there's this perception that it's this quick or this instant or blah, 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 or a quick fix to something. And it's not. Sometimes your inner voice is asking yourself the right questions and then stepping back for the answer to come to you.
Yeah.
And being patient with that, like knowing that some things are going to take maybe a couple days or a bit longer, you know?
Would you say your inner voice is almost like a protector for yourself?
I'd say so. And I would say it's the most powerful voice. It's so much more powerful than your emotional
It
voice.
should be, yeah.
But your emotional voice is just faster and louder. That's it, you know? The minute you slow down and step back, that's when your inner voice comes in through so clearly. And you can doubt that, and that happens, but it doesn't take the truth from you of what your inner voice is actually telling you.
Do you separate your inner voice from your intuition?
I think it's the same thing.
I think it's the same thing. So do you think your inner voice always has to be attached to words? Or can it be symbols, gut feelings, things of that nature?
Yeah, I think your inner voice is also how you feel, you know? For instance, another example with the same friend, with that whole thing.
Sounds like a great friend.
Another example, my inner voice is saying don't comment, but another example of my inner voice was trying to force the friendship too. And again, this is what I mean about being bombarded with voices and information, because sometimes someone can tell you their whole life story, everything that's going on with them, all these things that they're struggling with, so that you have no room to think about how you feel about something or how your needs are. You're just thinking, damn, this person has it so hard, and if I'm not putting myself on the back burner, I'm adding to their stress, you know? So then everything you're doing is just taking their reactions into consideration. And that's why I felt so bad, because I wasn't thinking about, oh my God, how is this affecting me? I was thinking, oh my God, how are my words affecting them, you know? Which is important to do, I guess, but not to that degree. Like sometimes you have to say something that someone's not going to like because it's truthful to you. But even though everything in me is saying, oh, you know, this person says they love me, they say they care about me, they say that they're doing, you know, they're saying all the right things and blah, 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 and that it's not personal. But my body just does not feel good talking to them. The thought of seeing them in person, the thought of being around them does not make me feel good. And I'm feeling frustrated, and I'm also feeling low, like my shoulders feel heavy. That's my inner voice too. That's saying, I don't think this person is right for you right now. And you might not know why until later, or until something that has been hidden from you comes out. You just don't know. And that's what trusting your inner voice is.
Do you think your inner voice can ever tell you to do something bad?
No, I think your inner voice could tell you to do something and it could go wrong, but that's there to lead you to something else, you know? My inner voice told me to take this job that I then truly, truly hated. It was a terrible, terrible experience. But if I didn't follow my inner voice and have that job, I wouldn't have received the wisdom of knowing that this career path was no longer for me, and now be in a totally different path and direction, and have the courage and confidence to do that.
That's an interesting way of spinning it.
It happens, you know, like sometimes your inner voice will say, do this, do this, do this, or trust this person.
Yeah.
And you have to zoom out all the time and look at the bigger picture of it too, that there's things and lessons that you need to learn along the way.
So why do you think, that some people will have more value in the thoughts and the voices of other people than their own?
I think if you're around people who belittle you, who make you feel like your voice can't be trusted, then you're not going to trust your inner voice. And that's why it's so important to be mindful of who's around you. And if you can't get away from those people, who you're talking to, what you're talking about with them. I think when you are trying something new and you don't fully trust yourself, then you can... I think also there's very particular things that we've been told about how things should look, you know, how a certain path should look. For instance, by 30, you should already be deep into your career and now be looking to have kids. I don't have either of those things. So, you know, your inner voice will tell you, just do this thing, go for that job, blah, blah. Not your inner voice, sorry. These other voices will tell you to do these things, and you'll ignore your inner voice that's telling you something totally different, you know?
Yeah. But as like, not to jump on those specific examples you given, but to jump on those specific examples, like how do you put that to the side when everything in your face and everything that around you might be telling you that's the way that you should be living your life, or that's what you should be aiming for?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's another part of your inner voice that I wanted to talk about, which is how you talk to yourself. And that is your biggest power and tool that you can use in your life. Like how you speak to yourself is just so important. And that can look like, you know, no, just stick to the tried and tested method. You're not smart enough. It's not going to work out. That's crazy. It doesn't even make sense, blah, blah, blah. Or it can be, I'm abundant. I was born abundant. My birthright is abundance. Even if it's not in front of me right now, I'm working with something bigger than myself, and we all serve the light. So I'm going to trust that.
But you see with that, yeah, do you think you need to see it in action for you to actually believe it? Because, excuse me, like those words that you just used, yeah, if you're not really like a person that really knows about it, it's just words, right? And it can seem like buzzwords. Like you could be telling yourself these things, but if you don't truly believe in it, do you think you need to see it in action for you to believe in it? Or is it something within yourself that...
The universe will show you, like your thoughts lead to your emotions, which leads to your actions, which leads to attractions, like the magnet, what you're drawing to yourself. These things will always show up, you know? What you believe does happen. And I think it doesn't even need to be like speaking to God and stuff like that. It can be telling yourself and reminding yourself of everything you've achieved already, and knowing that you can achieve more. Sometimes we'll say to ourselves, no, because I don't know how to do that. Like, I can't do that. And it's like, of course you can't do that. You've never done it before. The question you should ask is, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Who do I ask? You know?
And that's what the crazy thing is, like, you see, like that. Have you ever had that feeling of, I can't do something, but you have something else inside you telling you to just try it? And you don't know the answer, but you just try it, and it happens,
and it works, and more often than not you do a better job than you thought you could, you know?
It's like sometimes you just got to listen to yourself. Yeah,
you do. And to answer your previous question too, like that's the thing, when you're starting out listening to your inner voice, the way that I'm talking about my inner voice now was not how I started at all. You know, it was totally different. But that's what I mean. Like, it's a practice. The more you listen to your intuition, the more you listen to your inner voice, the more you appreciate the truth in it, and you build that trust with yourself.
But that's like, again, that's a learning process, and that's what I'm trying to drive home. Like you said, it's not an immediate thing. So there might be occasions where your inner voice, you can hear your inner voice, but you don't, not that you don't trust it, but you don't believe in it because you've not seen it in action. Like, it sounds cool. Like, yeah, it sounds cool, but I don't know that this is going to be the actual result of that. And there might be things in your life that's stopping you from seeing how that can work, or how that's possible, or is this even the right thing to do at the moment? But again, like you're saying, sometimes it can be a case of, it might not be beneficial for you right this moment, but you still have to trust it, because you going through this process will help you to grow in the future. Like, I know that I've been in a situation, yeah, where I've done something that I probably shouldn't have done, yeah, but something told me to do it. I don't know what that something was, but something told me to do it, right? And like, to one person it might be a bad thing, but to me, I didn't hold remorse over it. I wasn't remorseful over it, because it wasn't nothing crazy like that where you should hold remorse over it. But you know, like,
you didn't regret it.
I didn't regret it, but it was a case of, by me doing that, I managed to learn something from that situation.
And you needed to learn
and I
it.
needed to learn that. Like I needed to learn that because I was then faced with another situation that would have been a much worse outcome if I didn't learn that lesson, right?
Yeah.
But it was a case of just listening to that. Like it doesn't have to be as deep as it sounds, if that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't have to be as such a...
Your inner voice isn't this like crystal ball in your body that you need to rub to get an answer from. Your inner voice is with you all the time, like all the time. You just need to pause. It's not like you have to go out and sit in nature and sit there for hours to receive information. You just sometimes need to pick up a pen and ask yourself, how am I feeling? Or as you're walking down the street, ask yourself how you're feeling. You know.
Do you think it's good to ignore it for your own enjoyment sometimes? What kind of question are you asking me?
No, you know what? I was just getting so many flashbacks of when I have.
After all of that.
No. And I'll give you a real life example. So, for example, and this is why it's so important to listen to the voices in your head, you know, and understand who that voice is. Like, is this a voice that's trying to take me off my path, or is a voice trying to bring me on? And just before I get into it, again, like, growing in those moments never appealed to me when I was tempted to do what I wanted to do. And what's changed for me is thinking, is this just going to make you feel good or not feel good? And an example of not listening to your inner voice is when you're about to, say, for example, when you're about to do something or a task or whatever, and then you'll say to yourself, oh, let me just smoke before I do this task because it will make it more fun, or I'll be more creative, I'll tap into this more quicker, I'll feel better as I'm doing it, this, that, and the other. And your inner voice is telling you, you know that this is not good for you. You don't need anything outside of yourself to do this specific thing. Just don't do that. But you don't listen to your inner voice. You go do it anyway. And guess what? You fall asleep. And guess what's not fun? Having to wake up and do the task the next day when you're tired and monged over. Like, that is not what you need to be doing, you know? So that's why it's so important to listen to these other voices in your head and to think, is the voice in my head right now sounding like a friend to me or like an enemy? Because there's a voice in me that wants me to move forward peacefully, and there's another voice that wants me to stay where I am forever.
But do you think you have to look at every situation like that? So say like it's a situation where your inner voice is saying, it's something wise that don't do this because X, Y, Z, right? If you do this, you know what's going to happen tomorrow. But you want that moment of fun. Nothing bad happens of it. But you want to live a bit. But
then is that your inner voice then? Because your inner, that's what's so important, because sometimes these other voices will disguise itself as the inner voice. Like, this is the voice of wisdom. This is the voice of logic. Any voice in your head that is feeling like it's convincing you to do something or to not do something is not your inner voice. Your inner voice also cannot be a voice. It's that pull inside of you that's drawing you to something. Like, for instance, you hear stories about people who are just drawn to someone even though they totally shouldn't be, and this person's not even their type at all, but they end up being the love of their life and they're happy forever. Well, no one, you know, that's quite fairy tale-y, but you know what I mean? Like, it never goes badly. Like, that's why it's so important to know what your inner voice is. Like, the other day, for example, I was like really tired. Well, not really tired, but kind of tired, had some stuff to do the next day, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, should I go to my friend's birthday thing? Should I not? Should I drink? Should I not? Blah, blah, blah. And there were all these voices in my head telling me exactly why I shouldn't drink and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. But something in me just really wanted to, you know? And I really wanted to like let loose, have some fun. And guess what? I didn't drink more than I needed to. I didn't break the bank buying loads of drinks either. I had a really, really good time. And I got a lot out of that night with you know, my friend and their friends and my other friends. Like, it was just such a nice evening, and it shifted me into a different, like, now I've gone blank. What's the word I'm looking for? It shifted me into a different energy, I guess, for the week ahead, which I wouldn't have had that more upbeatness to me. Why can't I speak?
It's not just me. I'm so happy.
I wouldn't have just felt upbeat and ready had I not done that, you know? So yeah, it's important to listen to the voices in you, and it's important to do something, even if logic, like the inner voice isn't just logic, you know? Logic and emotion are both things that you need, but they're not your inner voice.
Interesting. No, that's interesting. Because sometimes you can think that you have to cut out all the fun and all of that, but it's not a boring voice.
No, it's not a boring voice. It's not. And it's not the voice that's telling you to keep calm all the time either. Like, that's the voice that will sometimes tell you to tell someone about themselves, you know? But there's a difference between that voice that's saying all the necessary things in a very straightforward way, and then the other voice that is petty and angry and, you know, displaying anger rather than expressing anger.
100%. I mean, like I said before, it's within yourself to try and work out what voice is what, right? But
so how do you do it?
I don't know.
I thought you were just gonna say I don't.
I don't know. Like, I actually don't know, because the more and more I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, it's just a natural thing for me. And it doesn't always happen, because there's times that I know that I don't listen.
It's a time about those times.
What's
happened? And how did you know that you didn't listen to your inner voice at those times?
Do you know what the conflict is, yeah? When you don't listen, but there's no bad outcome. Because it's easy to identify when something goes wrong and you're like, I should have listened to myself. I should have listened. But you see, when nothing goes wrong, and to still have that perspective of, I should have listened, but it's cool anyway, because nothing bad happened. So it's kind of hard to measure it, because like I'm saying, unless something goes wrong, it's hard to kind of see how and why you should have listened. It doesn't have to be nothing extreme. It could just be like you said, I'm tired the next day, I should have just went to sleep an hour earlier or whatever, when I felt tired, when I was telling myself. Like, have you ever been doing something and you're just like, even if you're watching something, you're like, you're ready to turn it off, but then you're like, no, I'm just going to watch one more. But something's telling you to turn it off, but you're like, no, I'm just going to watch one more. And then the next day you wake up tired. You can kind of measure that. That happened
to me today, actually. Like, I was watching something and I really would have benefited from a nap and like meditating and then napping. And I literally was like, just turn it off, because you're going to regret this when you finally start having a nap and there's just not enough time, and you're going to hate this so much. Yep. You know, and that is also your inner voice, because it was true. And I turned it off, had my nap, got everything done, and I feel so much better. And I think that's what you need to ask yourself at the end of the day. It's like, how much urgency do you have to feel good in your life? You know, like, how important is that to you? And that's why the way you speak to yourself is so important, because you can make your mistakes so much worse than they even were in real life, just because of how you speak about them to yourself.
Yeah, it's very true. It's so trivial, because it can be so small, such small things, even just like food choices, like small things like that.
Yeah,
you do it on a day to day, like everywhere you go, and you do it on a day to day. But mastering it, I don't think you can truly master it. Me personally, I think
your inner voice.
Yeah, I don't think you can master it.
Well, I think it depends on what you call mastering it, you know, and we all need to cut ourselves some slack, because like I said, We are in the digital age of spiritual warfare. That means you pick up your phone, and before you even gone on any of the apps, well, actually that's not true. You have to go on an app to see it. So say you pick up your phone, you go on the YouTube app. Before you even type in the thing that you want, there's YouTube Shorts. All these different things, all these different voices, all this information going into your head in a split second. You know, you'll be on your phone on TikTok for just 1 minute. Count how many videos you scroll through in just 1 minute. It's not your fault that there are so many voices in your head at all times. It's not your fault that there is, you know, you walk down a road and you'll see 13 different adverts in the space of 1 second, while also simultaneously passing loads of people having separate conversations. But so it's not your fault that and it's also not your fault that the voices of your parents, your friends, your siblings, all these things that you've listened to as you've grown up and as you've gotten older are the first default things that come into your head when something happens. Having the expectation that your inner voice will be there straight away in every given situation is not fair to yourself. But mastering it is knowing, okay, that's the first thought. The first thought didn't come from me. So inner voice, send me that second thought, you know? And sometimes that doesn't even work. Like I said, I've done this for a while now. And even me, the other day, I had to lie down and I was curled up because I just felt so ashamed over something so small. And when I thought about it, I was like, the voice in my head right now is my friend's voice. It's not even my voice. It's not even me thinking about the things I've said. It's her voice thinking about how she's feeling towards what I've said, because I know her and she's bombarded me with a lot of information about herself. So I know exactly what voice is coming at me.
Yeah.
And then that's when you need to step back and be like, whoa, you know, let me remove my energy from this because spiritual warfare is real. And let me tap into my own voice. How do I actually feel about this? And that's when I was like, you know what? I deserve to feel comfortable and authentic around people. I deserve to feel safe and good. And that's when you start to do that. And yeah, when you first do it, you might not believe everything you say, but the brain really does learn through repetition. So you have to just keep trying and trying and trying.
When you was talking, I had a question for you.
I feel like I went on a rant,
Yeah,
just
did.
like,
What?
I was really just in
You
the zone
zoned
there.
in. That's why I didn't want to interrupt. But there it is. My final question that I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a position where you want to hear your voice, but you can't hear anything?
Yeah, but even then, it's because there's been another voice, you know?
You've never been in a position where you can't hear any voice, and you're seeking guidance from within yourself, and you
Yeah,
can't hear
but
anything.
but you're still hearing a voice. Like when you're seeking guidance, you're like, for me personally, I'd be like, come on, spirit, give me an answer. What's the answer? What is it? Is it this? Is it that? Or like, come on, inner voice, tell me something. You're already bringing like a pressure and expectation and energy to that. That's different from sitting back and just like, and it doesn't need to be like this whole dramatic experience.
No,
like
it's
you
not.
said,
What I'm saying is something as simple as being in a situation and being like, I actually don't know what to do.
that's your
like
inner voice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But what do you do?
sometimes,
That's one question. When you're in that situation where you don't know what to do and there's nothing giving you an answer of what to do,
then you do something else, you know? Like sometimes a small example, like a trivial example, if you're trying to go to sleep and you just can't sleep and you're like, oh my God, inner voice, what do I do to get to sleep right now? You won't have an answer for that. But then something in your head will say, go get a cup of water, you know? That's what the trust is. Like that's what trusting your inner voice is, in my opinion. Just trusting, just being patient with it, you know, and just trusting whatever is there. Like if you don't know what to do, that's a fact and that's okay. Like even in a situation, say you're in a conversation with someone or something's happening or oh my God, I just don't. For example, this fallout with my friend right now, I don't know if I should reach back out. I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. Every time I ask my inner voice, what do I do? It just feels confusing. So in my head, I'm like, okay, that means do nothing, you know? But again, the more you speak to your inner voice, the more you try to listen to it, I guess, is a better way of putting that, the more practiced you'll become in those things. And I think a big part of it for me was just really being okay with the fact that I'm so human, I'm just not going to do this perfectly. I can send a message and I won't say exactly the right thing, you know? There will be things that this person's going to pick out from my message that I shouldn't do. And that's okay, because I'm willing to be proven wrong, and I'm willing to apologize if I am proven wrong on something, because I'm willing to make mistakes. You have to make peace with that.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
You gotta be willing to be called out, you know?
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Not cancelled, but called out is fine.
Yeah, that's total different things.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. I think on that note, it's that time of the show.
Wise words of advice. I don't know why I keep calling it wise words, but it's your word of advice.
Just adding wisdom.
Yeah.
This is a tricky one because I think it's blatantly obvious what.
Listen to your inner voice. Oh, you know what? Then give your word of advice of what practical tool you'd advise people to do to listen to their inner voice that you do.
It's easy to say.
What do you actually do? I
don't rush decisions. I don't rush anything. Like, I try my best not to anyway. Let me say don't, because I do sometimes. But I try my best to be rational and not rush anything. Allow myself to...
Give yourself room.
You know what? Scrap all of that. Do you know what I'm very good at? And a lot of people don't like sleeping on things. Like, that is the same thing, but like, I just mean like, that is literally what I do. I sleep. If there's something like very much troubling me or something that I'm trying to find an answer with, or I sleep on it.
I love that, because I really regret it when I don't do that, and I know that I should have done.
But it's difficult though, because if something pops up early in the morning, I'm having to wait until the night time to sleep on it. So
I can see why people don't like this. They're like, well, can't you use like the 16 hours before?
Yeah, no, that's when it comes a bit difficult. But yeah.
So what makes you like what kind of, is it just like, what kind of situation does it have to be for you to sleep on something?
It don't even have to be, it could be anything. It could be like, it could be literally anything. It could be an argument. It could be a big purchase. It could be what's the word I'm thinking of? Like when something's drawing you towards something, but you're not sure if you should actually do that.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah, it could be something like that. You know, you might have an intrigue towards something, and instead of reacting on impulse, like messaging someone or just sleep on it and be like.
I think part of why I don't sleep on things is because something in me knows that if I do sleep on it, then I'm just not going to end up doing the thing, you know?
No, you have to do it.
You have to.
That's not sleeping on it, that's ignoring it.
Yeah. You're just
sleeping on it is with the
Mm.
intention of revisiting it when you wake up and seeing how you feel about it.
No, I meant like if I know that I'm going to say with that example of calling someone, I know that if I don't do it, like don't call them and sleep on it, I'm just not going to call that person.
Yeah, that's terrible. I can't really speak because I'm poor with my messages sometimes, but yeah, that's another story. What about yourself?
For listening to my inner voice, I think one thing is listening to the voice in my head and naming that voice, you know, like what is this current voice in my head saying, you know, in terms of like working with your inner voice and the way that you speak with yourself. Like, is that a parental voice that I've grown up with? Yeah. Is that a shameful voice? Is that, because that's not mine if it's making me feel bad. Yeah. So that's one thing for like, you know, how you speak to yourself and stuff like that. And then bring in a more loving voice. And then for like, intuition and inner voice, and I think I can be quite impulsive, so it's hard for me to listen to my inner voice or to allow room for it. But I think giving yourself room, like you said, is so important to do that, you know? Even if it's just like, I'll let you know, or running to the toilet and just seeing how you feel.
Don't be scared to say I'll let you know, because do you know what it is? What I've realized as well? Everything sounds good in the moment.
Yeah.
Everything sounds good in the moment.
It's
So you
so
have
true.
to give yourself a moment to see if it still sounds good to you afterwards.
Or even like promising things to other people, you know, like, oh my God, this weekend's been so great. Next weekend, let's blah, blah, blah. Next weekend, I'm tired. So just keep it at I'll let you know. That could be good. Blah, blah, blah. I think that's important. And lastly, this is the longest word of advice we've ever had, but the last thing I'd say is listen to your body. Your body just doesn't lie, you know? Like, you have to listen to your body. Like, if you're thinking of someone and you're already just feeling tense and your shoulders are clenching, then that's not a good person to think about.
Very true. Does anybody think about that right now?
Well, I don't think of them, so my body's cool.
Good answer.
Not here, unprovoked, rent free, no way.
Yeah, I tried to catch you out.
But my inner voice said, don't respond straight away.
Don't fall for it.
Yeah, don't fall for it. Not today. But yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
Yes.
on that note, it's been another wonderful episode.
Yes, it has.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
As always.
As always.
And until next time.
Until then.